Good day everyone. So I am your first reporter. So first we're gonna discuss what is grading. So grading is a process of assigning a numerical value, letter, or symbol to represent student knowledge and performance. So this is our called grade. So according to GASCE 2004, it is the degree of measurement. So grading, as we all know, grade or grading is the measurements of student performance, and especially in their academics. So grading is very important to us, especially we are the future educator. It is very important that we have the knowledge, especially in grading our students, of course, to avoid biases, unfairness, and also to evaluate the performance of our students, and also to give them the better grades that they deserve. So grading have 6 rules. So the first rule is to communicate achievement status of students to parents and other stakeholders. Next is to provide information to students for self-evaluation, to select, identify, or sort students for specific programs. Number 4, to provide incentives for students to learn. Next, to evaluate effectiveness of instructional programs. Last is to provide evidence for students' lack of effort or inability to accept responsibility for inappropriate behavior. So, the purpose of grading can be summarized into 4 according to Mutual, Nemanen, and Burke 2009. So first is the communication. So we all know that communication is very important. It is our strong foundation, especially in connecting the teachers and the students. And the communication is one of our way in teaching our students in order for them to learn, and also it is one of our way to evaluate them. And that's why the communication was very important, especially in grading our students. So next is the feedback. So also feedback is very important. So it is very, especially for us, the future educator, it is very important for us to have the feedback, because feedback will, either it is negative or positive, it will help us to improve. And also feedback, we can also give feedback for our students for them to improve, especially if they are not doing well in their academics. So by giving feedback to them, they will realize their mistakes, and they will motivate them to do better, and to do better in their academics. So next is sorting. So sorting in grading refers to the process of categorizing or ranking the student performance. So as far as I remember, ranking the student was very popular in our elementary days. At the end of the quarters, the teacher will announce who are the top 10 students or the top 5 students. So next is the accountability. So if we're talking about accountability, it is a broad word, and also it is very important for us, especially as an educator, to take accountability in grading our students. So the accountability, it is the responsibility of the educators to ensure that grades accurately reflect the students' knowledge, skills, and performance. So in accountability, it will promote fairness. So it will ensure that grades are based on the individual merit of the students. And also accountability, it will build trust to your students. It will build trust between the educators, students, and the stakeholders. So let's move to the analysis of assessment data. So we have the two critical elements of grades. First is the analysis of assessment data, and the interpretation and communication of grades. So first is the analysis of assessment data. So it is analyzing assessment data. The teacher must make sure that grades reflect students' learning and performance. So it is very important if you are grading your student that you should base or reflect their learnings and their performance. If they deserve a higher grade or they deserve a lower grade. So, for example, if your students are doing well, they excel in their academics, they participate well, and they giving all their efforts in order for them to have a better grade, so they deserve a higher grade. So, and in some other scenarios, there are some students that they don't give effort in their academics. They are not doing well. Maybe they don't know the factors why they are not doing well in their academics. So it is very important that we should analyze first before grading our students. So next is the interpretation and communication of grades. So the main purpose of grading is to communicate information for students and parents about students' achievement or goal attainment. So it is very important that we have the communication between the teacher, parents, and the student. And also, it is very important that the parents are informed about the performance of their students or their sons or daughters. And it is very important that they will know so that they will help to evaluate or to motivate their children. And also, it is one way that we can help the students through informing their parents so that their parents will advise them or they will motivate their child to do better in their academics, especially if they fail their academics. And so let's move to the grading system. So we have two types of comparison. First is the norm reference grading. So it is focused on performance of one's peers and grading with relative standard. So norm reference is a type of assessment or grading that compares a student performance to their peers rather than to a fixed standard or criteria. So in norm reference, you can easily identify who are the top students because you are comparing the students based on their achievement. And in norm reference, their performance is evaluated based on how well students do compared to others. Next is the criterion reference or the absolute standard grading. So grades reflect students' achievements of the learning targets as specified in the curriculum. So the criterion reference, it is a type of assessment or grading that evaluates a student performance based on the fixed set of standards, criteria, or learning objectives. So if in norm reference, and the student doesn't need to meet a certain criteria or standards, but in this case, the criterion reference, the student needs to meet or they need to meet the certain standards or criteria. So in this case, in the criterion reference, the students need to meet the certain criteria or standards. So the criterion reference, it is focuses on individual student achievement rather than comparing them to each other. So let's move to the approaches of grading. So the local and international schools offering basic and tertiary education use codes in reporting student progress and achievement. And we have several types of grades notation. So the first is the numerical grade. So the system of using numerical grade is popular and well understood. And yes, I totally agree because the numerical grade is very popular, especially that in our curriculum we teacher usually use the numerical grade. And it is very easy for us as a student to understand our grade. Either we pass or we fail our su- our grade in this certain subject. But the numerical grade doesn't actually describe the strength and weaknesses of the learners. Next is the letter grade. So letter grades have the same advantages and disadvantages of numerical grades. They appear to be less intimidating compared to the numerical grades. The letter grades are typical in American grade schools and high schools because here in the Philippines we are using the numerical grades, and each letter of the letter grades represent something. For example, the students got letter A. So letter A represent a higher score, or he or she got an excellent score. And another, if the student got letter F, he or she failed this subject. So next is the two category grades: the pass or fail, the satisfactory or unsatisfactory. So this is less stressful to students because they need not fear about no grades point averages. But however, some students may tend to aspire for just a minimum level of competence to pass the subject or the course. So one of the drawback of these two category grades is lack of information this system provides regarding students' strong and weak points. Next is the checklist. A checklist may be simple or elaborate. So the checklists are common in elementary level and can very well replace or supplement traditional grading and reporting system. So in the checklist objectives with scales of performance, rating of students' performance are made indicating the extent of attainment of the learning objectives or outcomes. Last is the standard-based, advanced, proficient, beginning, or similar. So the teacher requires to base grades from definite learning standards and compels them to distinguish product, process, and progress criteria in assigning grades. Okay, if we have approaches and grading, we also have grading issues. So the first one is consider what type of students' performances you need. So you as a teacher, it is very important that you consider what type of performance you need in order for your students to meet your certain standards, especially in grading them. Next, consider how to make marking skills consistent throughout the marking period. Next, decide on the grades components in their respective weights. Number 4, consider the standards or boundaries for each letter grades. Okay, number 5, decide on borderline cases. Number 6, be concerned with the issue of failures. Number 7, be concerned with the practice of assigning 0 for mark. So, you as a teacher, it is very important that you have the knowledge, skills, and a wider perspective, especially in grading your students, either they deserve this kind of grades or not. And you should be mindful in grading them to avoid misunderstanding issues and also to build a great communication with them. And that's all for my part. Thank you for listening.
Okay, now let's move on to reporting. Reporting involves report card, which a report card is a common method of reporting a learner's abilities and progress. It contains a learner's numerical or letter grade plus other relevant information. Report card is also known as DepEd Form 138E, which contain the rating per grading period and final rating in each learning areas. Also, attendance record and learners observed values. We're not just only limited to the report card. We also have other ways to report student performance, such as parent-teacher conference and portfolios. Parent-teacher conference is a face-to-face, efficient way to share information with parents, iron out any misunderstanding between home and school situation, and plan together a program would help students to improve their status. Next is portfolio. Portfolio, it provides evidence a learner's progress and accomplishment. That is why teacher required every student to have an expanded envelope as their portfolio. Next, we have here 6 key principles of effective grading and reporting by Tomlinson and McTighe. First, grades and report should be based on clearly specified learning, grade, and performance standard. Basically, grades should reflect achievement of learning standard. The next is the evidence used for grading should be valid. Of course, grade should not be based on one-time assessment that spells either success or utter disaster for student. Third, grading should be based on established criteria. So instead of using a norm reference system, grades should mirror how learners attend the learning targets. Number 4. Not everything be included in grades. As mentioned in the previous segment, assessment for formative purposes are all about feedback. Summative assessment are the accountability measures that determine what students can or cannot do after an instructional unit. Number 5, avoid grading based on averages. O'Connor and Wormley 2011 claimed that averaging grades falsify grade reports. Suppose a student obtained a low grade at the first test but was able to get higher mark in second test on the same topic. It would be incorrect to average them out. Instead, choose the second assessment as a valid indicator of mastery. Next, number 6. Number 6, focus on achievement and report other factors separately. So it was clearly pointed out that academic elements should be separately from non-academic factors. It is according to Allen 2005, O'Connor and Wormley 2011, Previzan, and Boritz 2010, and Gasky 2004. Although separated, non-academic factor can be used to support student learning. Next is curriculum-based assessment or progress monitoring. Progress monitoring is a crucial that student progress is documented to aid in a communication with parents. It serves as the evidence to the parents of that specific learners. Progress monitoring is said to be valid and reliable predictor of subsequent assessment performance according to Deno 2003. It was also reported that progress monitoring improves students' motivation, but there is also a downside to the amount of time required according to Vanes, Soares, Smith, and Williams 2012. Nonetheless, teachers can involve students in monitoring their own progress for the student awareness about their learning progress, of course. Refers to the table 11.1 new percentage distribution of grade component. It is for grade 1 to 10 and also for effective for senior high school year 2015 to 2016. So the weight in the new grading system or the NGS range from 20 to 40% for written work, and then 40 to 60% for performance tasks, and 20 to 30% for quarterly assessment or examination. I can still remember when I was high school student that one of our teachers said that even you will get the perfect score for your quarterly assessment or examination, but if you miss your performance task or you don't have your performance task, there is a big possibility that you would fail. This is how performance tasks contribute a substantial percentage of student grade. Essentially, performance tasks assess learners' ability to do, which makes learning dynamic and realistic. Because imagine performance tasks is 40 to 60% in grading system, while the quarterly assessment or examination is just 20 to 30%. Next, table 11.2 transmission table, Appendix B, DepEd Order number 8, school year 2015. So after the weighted scores for all three components are obtained, the initial grade is calculated. This is simply the sum of weighted scores of the written works, performance tasks, and quarterly assessment. Finally, the initial grade is transmuted using a standard transmutation table. New grading system does not follow a zero-based system. The passing grade is 60, which is equivalent to 75 when we go back to the table 11.2, you would say you would see there that 60% or 60 scores is equivalent to 75. The floor grade is 60, so meaning score of 0 does not convert to equivalent grade of 0 but 60. In the old grading system, grades were described in the report card by level of proficiency. As shown in our table 11.3, letter codes appear in the report card, not numerical equivalent. So we have here the grading scale and then level of frequency. New grading system, the description and the remarks. So 90 above, level of proficiency as advanced and described as outstanding. Then 85 to 89, this proficiency level of proficiency which is proficient, which described as very satisfactory. 80 to 84, level of proficiency or approach proficiency and described as satisfactory. 75 to 79, developing and described as fairly satisfactory. And the last one, below 75, beginner level of frequency described as did not meet expectation or as a get a remarks of failed. As for instance, a student who attained a grade of 81% in science in the first semester. Looking back again to table 11.3, 81% is classified as a level of proficiency as approach proficiency. So therefore, that student would get a mark in the report card as a EP or approaching proficiency. Next table that you would see in the screen is the sample report card for grade 1 to 10, Appendix C, DepEd Order number 8, 2015. So at the back of that paper or card is the report of learning progress and achievement. Here, you can see the computed grades indicate in every component of learning areas. Aside from monitoring cognitive abilities and physical skills, their effective behaviors are also observed and reported. That is why we have this next table. Class advisors, together with other teachers, rate the student on how they manifest and adhere to DepEd core values. So we have they always observe, sometimes observed, rarely observed, and never observed. In regard to attendance, the maximum number of allowable absences is 20%. 20% of prescribed number of class. If students exceed the limit, he or she can be given a failing grade. However, the school may consider if the students had a valid reason for his or her absences. So now let's move on to the sample report for senior high school, Appendix C, DepEd Order number 8, 2015. So the next table that been shown report on learning process and achievement. Subject in senior high school is completed in one semester composed of 2 quarters. This is similar to our current setup in colleges and universities that observe a bi-semester system. And that would be all. Thank you.